Hi, welcome to my home. Come inside. Hi, my name is Andrea Oliva Florendo. And as you can see, I love gardens, I love flowers, I love art. But all this started when I was young. I was looking for an image of God, and my father showed me the miracle of the seed in a jar. But in the morning when I woke up, I found this sprout, a pale green sprout. And my father said, "You see, even when we're asleep, God is working." I do yoga and I meditate early in the morning, and then I take some walks in my garden. When you are a gardener, you have to attend to it. There's a responsibility. But that during the day, I write, and on weekends, I play the harp for the church. Even the plants, even the strings of the harp has something to tell us about the wonder of the garden. And I became very, very much interested about healing music because I myself am very much consoled by music. So this is what I want to offer others also. I have to begin with the Garden of Eden because that's where humanity gets a glimpse of a sacred place, a holy place, a garden of love. In the Bible, if you cut it in the middle, you will find the enclosed garden of the Song of Songs. So you enter it, and then you find a courtship ritual of betrothal, and then later on a wedding. So from this point of the enclosed garden of the Song of Songs, we call Mary now the enclosed garden. And even church fathers from the 3rd century and medieval and Renaissance, they were always saying that Mary is the enclosed garden of the Song of Songs. She becomes the bride of God, and her son becomes our gardener who plants now virtues, who cultivates virtues in all of us. So in other words, I want people to read this Song of Songs and let them feel the love, but love needs a response. How do you respond if someone loves you? So that's the question. It's one of the paintings that has been a mystical experience for me because in 1993, a Catholic museum asked me to paint a portrait of the Lady of Roses. Her apparition was seen in San Damiano, Italy, in the Rotonda of Padre Pio, now a saint. She appeared there for 1 year, and she had always been wearing a red cape. And people would say, how come she would always appear in red, not blue, as she normally does? Well, she was saying to the people that, I want you to remember this, that God's mercy is always with you. But anyway, how did I do this? Well, I told the museum I could not make it because I'm not a portrait artist. I was only a floral artist, and that's so different. Anyway, that night on January 3rd, while there was a blizzard in New York, I was alone and I was praying, and I said, Mother Mary, I you know, I don't want to disappoint you, but please give me an idea of your image in San Damiano, and I will try to paint you. And all of a sudden, I saw a shadow of the Virgin Mary on my wall, and it walked towards a piece of wood, which you see now. And although I had a night light, what happened was I took my brushes and paints, and I was painting in the night with the use of the night light. That was impossible. I did not even mix paints at all. It was like I was in a trance. I see myself painting, but I was not doing anything. But anyway, after 4 hours of painting, I collapsed in my bed. It's a good thing in my bed. And when I woke up, I saw the ceiling, so I thought I had died because it was all white. And when I stood up, I saw her painting, and I cried, and I said, I knew there was something that happened to me last night, but I didn't realize that it was her image. 6 months later, I got a book on the Lady of Roses, and the similarity, like for example, she looked like a Mediterranean teenager, about 13 or 14. She is wearing a red mantle, as you can see her. She's holding a rose. And then every time she would appear in the garden, even if it's winter, she would be surrounded by roses. So this has traveled in the Philippines, in Europe, and here in around America. And guess what? Every time we exhibit her, the whole place would smell like roses. The name of the rosary comes from a rose. Isn't that wonderful? The Bible is punctuated by gardens, and in the Bible, every little thing, whether it's a lily or a rose, a stump, has a meaning. And so they use all these elements that you find in creation to explain the principles of Christianity. So because I'm a theology professor, I try to consider it very relevant in my teaching. First of all, aside from Christian perspectives, I'm doing theology of Mary. So for me to teach Mary, there's no way that I can escape the garden, because Mary is the enclosed garden. Why? She was born immaculately pure. And because of her virginity, because she becomes now the mother of the Christ during the incarnation. So there's no way that I can escape from the relevance of nature in my work. The harp is what you call the instrument of the angels. And what consolation can one get when you hear the music of the angels? We may not be able to decipher it right now, but sometimes you hear something and you stop because you know it touches your heart, and you just can't erase that in your mind. You feel good, you feel at peace, and you just feel complete. Sometimes before I write, I play my music alone, and if somebody could hear it, that would be nice. But it's for me and the world. Whatever music that I set to myself, it also reaches everybody, because there is a certain frequency that begins from yourself and then passes on to others. That is a miracle that is happening, but we have gotten immune from the sounds of, the cacophony of everyday music. The music that we hear now is sometimes something that does not complement what we desire to have. The Song of Songs is actually a love letter from God. We never recognize it because people don't read it. It's very hard for them because it's got eroticism in it. The language is sensual. It's natural because for us people, it's very natural for us to be attracted to the opposite sex, and very natural for us also to have intimate relationships. But then God proposes a very ideal relationship where you prepare yourself toward marriage. And so there is abstinence that come in the journey that you have. I wrote this to pay tribute to the love that my husband and I had. I'd like other people to feel that. I'm sure many already are feeling that and in that experience. But then what about those who have not heard about it? That it's simply not hard to understand. It's a love story, and it's a garden. Why a garden? Because that's where you will meet God. When you go to a garden, every communion that we have with Him is a reunion of love. And we have to remember that at the end of our journey, we are still going to a garden. So solitude plays a good part of my life because that's, as I've said, that's where you feel a togetherness, an intimate friendship with God. You're alone and He is there, you talk, and sometimes you listen and He talks. I think they complement each other because the running theme, as I've said, is about the enclosed garden. You are a garden enclosed, my beloved, my sister, my bride. An enclosed garden for me means a woman who has not only a virgin, but who allows only his loved one to enter his garden. The only person who has an access to his garden, to her garden actually, is her beloved. We are here right now at the Mary Garden of the Immaculate Conception Monastery, and as you can see, the layout of this garden speaks about the medieval garden design. Now, in those days, during the time of the plague, a lot of people were dying, left and right, and they took refuge at the monastery. The monastery was a repository of all these medicinal herbs and plants, and most people are able to take chance or opportunity to stay in their infirmary. But then one day they decided, since they were always hankering for a devotion to the Virgin Mary, the monks decided to create a Mary garden. It was a particular garden dedicated to the Virgin Mary. But it's not just a garden, it's got symbolism in it. So as you can see in this garden, there are 4 quadrants. 4 gospels are also represented by these quadrants. Now, at the back of me, there is a statue of the Virgin Mary and her child. It's an important feature of a Mary garden because this garden is really devoted to the Mother of God and her Son. And it was her virginal garden that we received the incarnation. And also, she is surrounded by symbolical flowers. Now, these flowers earn a lot of titles for the Virgin Mary. There are over hundreds of them. Actually, each flower has a meaning with regards to the Virgin's attribute, mystery, and essence. Now here is a water fountain. It suggests the flowing waters, which also symbolizes the flowing waters of the Holy Spirit. Now, this is supposed to be a small garden. Why? Just like what you saw in my garden back home, because it symbolizes the womb of the Virgin Mary. Why is this important that I wrote about this? Because while I was painting the icons, which constitute about 12 icons and altar pieces, I received a grant from Yale University Divinity School, where I was allowed to be a research fellow. And it was there that I discovered from their library about the concept of a Mary garden. You have seen the prints at home, and that's why it made me very happy that there is such a garden that can be studied as part of theology. So in that case, what I did was, investigated more and tried to collect as many flowers that symbolize her. And that's how the book came about. First of all, from the very beginning of time, when Adam and Eve were banished from the Garden of Eden, God had a plan, a redemption plan. Plan was, it's going to be achieved through a woman and her son. And that woman was the Virgin Mary. Mary exemplifies a role model for any devotee who would like to follow the life of Christ and be a servant or a believer. She exemplifies all the virtues that we are all looking for. Well, I like the rose. The rose symbolizes divine love, and you have mostly all of the flowers that you have here has their own symbolism. You've got the greeneries here. The greeneries means fertility and prosperity. And then, of course, you have hydrangea, and then the geraniums for gentleness. Most of it really have been accorded a tribute by church fathers. So by the time of the 7th century, most of the flowers have been attributed to the Virgin Mary by the church, and they use it as a teaching, a tool to tell the people about the rich Judeo-Christian theology. The concept of the Song of Songs is an enclosed garden of the Virgin Mary with her son surrounded by symbolical flowers. Now, the medieval concept and the Renaissance concept follow that same concept. So in other words, most of the paintings created during medieval to Renaissance times feature the Virgin Mary and Child in a garden. You won't believe it, but there are over 1,000 paintings. Now, during the medieval times, what you see are black and white prints of a Mary garden, because at that time they didn't have the printing press yet. There was an avalanche of her paintings in the garden. It has to be the mother and child in a garden, surrounded by symbolical flowers. The flowers represent her virtues, her attributes, and her mysteries. I love the roses around the Virgin Mary. We know that rosary is a devotion given to Mary, and guess what? It comes from the flower rose. And rosarium is actually another name for the rosary. So I love the roses. It once grew in Eden, and now we have it here. Theology and Religious Studies have helped me so much in writing about these books. Otherwise, I would not have been able to do it. Also, I was able to create a Mary Garden learning program at St. John's University. I worked on it for 2 years, and after 2 years, the students and I created a Mary Garden at St. John's University, the first in 147 years. So in other words, while we're doing this learning community, the students became co-gardeners, and they get graded. They provide the cultivation of the garden. It's part of their theology course. We have a greenhouse, we have an herbarium, and all of those that we have been using are from the leaf motifs of the Mary Garden itself. So in other words, they were able to come face to face to a real Mary Garden, and it has been there for over 10 years now. I was introduced to the Virgin Mary when I was 5 years old by my grandma. She's an herbalist and a midwife, and every morning we would gather flowers in the garden and make a garland and go to the church to offer it to the Virgin Mary. At that time, I didn't know much about the Virgin Mary, but I would see these people, how they respect her, how they pray to her, how they call on her. And that ritual that I had with my grandma became a part of my life. And then, of course, I learned from her how to make teas out of herbs, how to make colognes out of plants, shampoos, and soaps. So it all became a part of my life. So it was like she indoctrinated me into this kind of work. I am a spokesperson for my grandma. Recognize that they cannot make a garden space like this, but we have also Mary Garden dishes where you can plant some Mary Garden flowers with her statue and put it on a windowsill. Now, the importance of it is that you have a special place for Mary that you can go to anytime if you feel the need to talk to her. So the flowers will remind you of the beauty of the world. Even if you don't know the meaning of it, just by looking at the flower, I think it will console your soul. And then, of course, it will remind you of the love that God has for us because He sent His only Son. As I was saying a while ago, when John in Revelation, in the book of Revelation, he saw in his final vision a vision of the heavenly Eden. And isn't it nice that he said that we're gonna have a new heaven and a new earth, whatever that would be and whatever place, but it's there. And so our journey here on earth is really a pilgrimage to the Garden of Love. I'm writing a book on music and art. It's called Where Flowers Bloom, an Artist's Odyssey. God.